Welcome to the Caribbean Property Investing Podcast, where we share real-life experiences for successful Caribbean property entrepreneurs. Learn about their successes, challenges, and strategies to help you create your plan for financial freedom. Now let's get started.
I love my community. It teaches you the importance of being together even through difficult times. Business owners doing their best to make it through. Fishermen and farmers working hard to put food on our tables. Nurses caring for the sick shows me who we are made of. People who care. I guess it's about growing together.
Welcome to episode 15 of the Caribbean Property Investing Podcast. We want to thank you for your support so far. Thank you for sharing, liking, sharing the conversation, and generally just spreading the word. We've been overwhelmed by the response, and we want to keep on giving you as much feedback and as much knowledge sharing as is humanly possible. So reach out to us on our IG page, on our Facebook page, as well as on CaribbeanPropertyInvesting.com. This week we have a special episode, another special episode. Every episode is special. We are slightly pivoting and taking our property investing perspective a little different, on a different trajectory compared to where we were before. Typically, our previous episodes, we had as guests property investors and sharing their experiences. Today, our special guest is none other than Miss Karline Purcell, the Deputy Director of the Citizenship by Investment Program in the beautiful Spice Island of Grenada. Welcome, Miss Purcell.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I do feel special.
Okay, Miss Purcell, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am a go-getter, and I've been an entrepreneur for 7 years. The last 7 years, actually, in the hospitality industry. I ran a restaurant. Prior to that, though, my commercial background would have been at Cable and Wireless, both local and regional, in the area of marketing, market strategy. So I would think that that's where my strong point is. I have a love and passion for what's going on in the market. My study background is economics and management. So you can see that I have a love for, what's going on in the economy, how the economy is turning and what causes it to turn. So that's my area of specialty. And over the years, I would have applied those elements to all different areas of business that I'm involved with. I would have done my master's at Southern Illinois University quite a while back. It seems that way now. But so I'm here now with years of experience on top of my formal training.
Okay, we're talking CIP, Citizenship by Investment Program, or CBI, CIP, it's called. And you'll tell us a little bit more about it, but typically it is where a non-national can acquire a passport, which is a form of citizenship, and enjoy all of the benefits as a typical citizen would. Now, to qualify, there are a number of conditions. Obviously, our key interest would be property. However, why don't you give us a broad overview of the Grenada's program, which was started in 2013?
Yes, so towards the end of 2013. So our program is two-pronged. There are two elements to our program. So there's an opportunity, like you said, for international persons to attain citizenship through investing. They can choose to invest through our NTF program, which is a government program. So it directly to the government, which where the funds are used towards the development of public sector investment programs. So those vary over the years based on where the needs are. So that's one avenue. The second avenue is to present your proposal for the development of a project, again, in areas that are identified as sustainable development areas for the economy. So far, most of the investment have been coming in the area of tourism. However, we are looking to, diversify that a little bit more, in areas of IT and agriculture, especially technology-driven agriculture. Those are some of the areas that we're looking to try to attract investors in. We're trying to ensure that there's more congruence between how our national development plan and the investment we attract.
Okay, and when you said that the majority of the interest by, I guess, would-be applicants was in the area of tourism, are you talking about hospitality site investment, property, real estate,
Yes,
hotel?
so mainly hotel type, small, cottages, that type of investment. That is what we have seen in the past, and we continue to see. So most of our projects thus far has been in that area. There's one that's a little bit of agriculture, and a little bit of hospitality in there. So it's a mix where it's a type of plantation type development. However, most of them thus far has been in the area of hospitality, hotels, restaurants with cottages, that type of development. However, let me just say one thing, and I would like persons to move away from passport being the first thing that we say when it comes to this program. No. Let me just say it here, because the thing is, as a citizen of any country, it's your entitlement to have a passport as part of you being a citizen. Now, especially in small islands like ours, and I know in Grenada, unlike the US where you have national security number and those sort of things, we don't have that here. So your passport is almost the only unique identifier that you have as a citizen that can take you worldwide. So by extension, by becoming a citizen, it is only natural and normal for one to attain a passport as part of that entitlement of being a citizen, right? So I want us, so it's the investment first, and then the elements of what comes with being a citizen comes with that, because it's the investment that allows you to become a citizen.
So the passport is the identifier. Even the passport has been used as the political football for various, I guess, sides and factions and groups
Yeah.
and constituents. What's the
Yes.
qualifying criteria for the government donation as well as the hospitality property investment, or the real estate property investment? What's the qualifying criteria?
For the government one, it's 100 for Grenada. It's 150,000 US would be your investment. For additional, so some people would apply for multiple members of their families, so that comes at an incremental amount as well, for every family member. Likewise, for the projects right now, it's at 220,000 US dollars per investment. Again, with incremental amounts based on the number of family members you're attaching to that. So those are the two basic entry points in terms of the investment amounts. Now, prior to making those investment amounts, you would have to, go through the application process, which attracts fees as well as due diligence. No, that is a large portion of the pride that comes with the program. We have a very, very robust due diligence process. It's pretty much a 6-phase type of process, where due diligence starts from the time the applicant is applying through their international marketing agent all the way through to us. So it's a very rigorous process. We have our due diligence done through internationally recognized due diligence companies. Actually, some of our banks, locally and regionally, and even internationally, at least 2 of our providers support international banks as well, for due diligence. So reputable due diligence companies, and that's a huge part of the program. the due diligence. It has to be, clean and clear. We have to ensure that the investors are legitimate, they're genuine, before we encourage them to be a part of the program. Now, a lot of countries have other ways you can become a citizen. You can marry a Grenadian overseas, and you can then apply as a husband or wife and become a citizen. But however, during that process, note, no due diligence is done generally. I don't know of a Caribbean program where due diligence is done on the individual that person would have married in terms of having them become part of it. So I'm just saying that the Citizen by Investment program actually adds another element to this due diligence that ensure that you're attracting the right persons in terms of becoming a citizen of your country.
That certainly is in my mind what I think is a novel perspective, because until then I had never compared the due diligence applied for a CBI candidate to become a citizen, and with all of the detractors who are not supporting the program obviously highlight the risk and what's wrong with the program. Whereas a simple situation of something that probably happens quite often, you marry somebody else and there isn't that vetting happening. That's a fair point. Now, going back to the objectives, you said earlier that the objective, whole reason or the thrust for the government of Grenada doing this program is to assist in the key areas of the economic strategy or the economic growth areas. What were some of the other objectives other than that economic growth assistance?
Yeah, well, we are looking to promote inward investment, which can help to create sustainable long-term employment, because that's a big part of it, right? So we would want the investors to invest in areas that can create sustainable employment, as well as a lot of specialist training can come with some of these areas. Some of these investors tend to invest in areas of, right now in Grenada, we've just had the launch of a hospitality training program, which is being offered by one of our CBI investors. They're coupled with Cornell University. So that's the type of thing that can come as a result of that as well. And in terms of just increasing the value of the product, and therefore the value of properties in Grenada as a result from continuous investment as well. So all of those things, I mean, ultimately it's growth, but through the different spillover effects of achieving some of those things.
What are some of the key benefits successful applicants will enjoy?
Some of the key benefits, I would say, successful applicants can enjoy. Well, of course, like most people would like to highlight, a passport. I mean, understanding that for some countries, some nationalities, it's a little bit more difficult for them to invest in other areas, or to just enter. I mean, there's an element of discrimination that happens as well by just carrying the passport of your country, whatever country that might be. I mean, even knowing that you would have invested in that country for years, built a strong business, you expanded, and you don't have the luxuries of being able to spend that wealth or travel with that wealth in the way you'd like to be able to. So a lot of people want the access to be able to, use the wealth that they would have accumulated in their country through having another citizenship. Right? So you have that. You also have now, well, given the pandemic and what has happened, a lot of persons now are looking for new avenues for expanding their portfolios for investment. So they're looking to diversify, not just in one region, not just in one area. How can we, now shake this up? Because you have some areas, some that have been hit, harder than others. So this is another opportunity for investors to diversify their portfolio. Also, I mean, you have some of the countries where some of these investors are coming from, where economic unrest and political unrest and just security and safety is a real concern. And a country like Grenada, where crime is minimal and persons still leave their houses unlocked. and their cars opened, go into the supermarket, those sort of things. I mean, that's a real human need as well. So those are some of the benefits that come with having been a part of the program.
I know for us in St. Lucia, we've often heard that access to the Schengen states, Europe, is a big draw for
Yes.
potential applicants, especially from China and Asia in generally. Do
Yes.
you find that to be the case for Grenada as well?
Yes, we actually get transitionary type migrants. So where Grenada isn't their final destination, but they're looking to get into another market. I mean, as well, remember, these are investors, and market size is a real thing. And in the Caribbean, many of our markets are not as large of the markets they're used to operating in. So when they're looking at expanding and getting into new businesses, some of these markets in the Caribbean are just too small in terms of what they're looking at. So we're transitionary so that they're able to get a citizenship from us and carry our passport, but that gives them a foot into another country in terms of their investment.
And if we were to look at our regional footprint, it means, for example, that a member of a holder of a CIP citizenship privilege would have access to CARICOM markets, for example, as well
Yes,
as
yes,
UCS, for
yes,
doing business.
exactly.
What's the application process like? Just give us a summary of it.
Application process. So it starts with the international marketing agent, who would be the one that directly interacts with the applicants. So they would take the applications, vet them, do the initial set of due diligence there. That then goes on to our local marketing agents, and that was the government's way of ensuring that locals are tapped in and are able to benefit from the program, the processing element of the program as well. So you must come through a local agent. Now in Grenada, most of our local agents are represented in the form of lawyers. We have a few real estate agents as well that are local agents, but mainly lawyers are on board as local agents. So they go through that process. But remember, in order for them to be able to accept funds externally from these agents and customers, they too would need to do their own due diligence, because they would have AML implications if they don't. That's anti-money laundering implications if they don't do their own vetting. So a second tier vetting is done there as well. Now, they are the ones locally that would then submit to our unit to process the application. And once it comes in with all of the supporting documentation, we would then vet it. It would go through our internal processes. Now, one thing to note is that as a result of COVID, it catapulted us into going online. So the local agents all have access to making these applications. The application is done through our online platform. So that happens and submitted remotely through the local agents. So that happens there. So it's all in our system at that time. So we process, we go through the information, then it's sent off through to due diligence. We're using our local guys as well. So we use our local financial intelligence unit, as well as goes off to the international agencies that we use. So we await that. Sometimes in the process, they would come back and ask for additional information. If they're having trouble based on the information that was provided, they would come back and ask for additional information. They then assess the applicant. They assign a risk level to that applicant. They send it to us based on the things that they would have identified and the risk level. We then, as a unit, we have a criteria process that we go through and assess that applicant. And based on the things identified in terms of the risk, and we can then choose to approve or deny that applicant. there's also an opportunity. Sometimes the thing is, sometimes, if an applicant realizes, based on the question, sometimes that you'll ask the applicant at that point, because sometimes based on what comes back in terms of the risk could be eliminated if it was a document that wasn't provided, or mitigated to some extent. So if it is, you need an additional bank statement or something to prove, movements of funds, then that's something you can request. And based on the request that's made, sometimes to the local agent, you may have somebody being a client say, well, boy, based on where they're going with these questions, let me withdraw my application. So you have that sometimes, that you have withdrawals even before it gets to the denial stage. So when it's, so I said it can either be denied or approved. So if it's approved, we let the client know that the application has been approved, and therefore the investment sums can then be submitted. Once the investment sums are submitted, then they're issued with the citizenship certificates and supporting passports and everything else that goes along with that. Now, if they're denied, they have an opportunity to go to come back through an appeal process as well.
Okay, what are some of the application fees like? What much money are we talking about here, roughly?
For the application fees, it's 8,000, range between 8,000 and 5,000. This is for individuals, US. Then you have, as well as you have for the projects themselves, the application is 20,000 US.
Okay, and is that refundable? So I apply.
No,
if
none of
I'm
the
denied,
application fees and processing fees. Neither is the due diligence fees refundable.
Wow. Okay, so I better have my act in order. I better be ready.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
What are some of the challenges you would have experienced, or the firm, the program would have experienced since launch? We know of, as citizens, as fellow citizens, one of its greatest fear for us is that someone with non-noble intentions would have applied and now have our national identifier, and would
Right.
have gone on to commit a crime. I guess the argument is that, and just like any other citizen, but I think we are particularly sensitive that someone who might have just, become a citizen through the program would then go on and commit a crime. That's a concern for us. And how have you guys managed that? Comments around that?
So, like I said, our due diligence process is a robust one to start. And I must also say that before the bank accepts money as well, they do their due diligence process. So even when we approve, the bank sometimes would come back and say, hey, I know you approved this. However, I'm trying to, something just came up on this particular customer. We, as it is now, we cannot accept these monies. Then we would go back, we'd have the conversation with our due diligence. Sometimes it's an issue of same name. Sometimes it's an issue of, a date that might be different in terms of birth data, that sort of thing. So we have to go back and vet through that process, right? So outside of having a robust due diligence process, we ensure that work is done periodically, randomly, on all our citizens. Every so often checks are done. There's a randomized way that our due diligence agency provide that back-end support to ensure that I think it's over a 5 to 10 year period that it continues in terms of random persons that would have been awarded citizenship would be checked randomly over the period of time, just to ensure that there is also, as part of the program, a citizenship could be revoked. So that's a real thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One of the other fears that come with the program is the fear of abandonment, specifically as it relates to projects.
Right.
St. Kitts was, I believe, the first to actively promote the program. I think somewhere in 1984, around there.
Yes, they're the grandfather. Yep.
Yeah, we've heard stories of persons who apply on the real estate arm. They would start a building, and I believe the apartments are empty, or once you get your passport, you no longer continue. Is that a real fear, and how often does that happen?
I mean, it is a real fear. Now, the thing is, and I'm sure St. Kitts is at a point now where they would have learned from their past experience, like anything else. For anything that's new, for any new business, you learn and you put things in place. So I know St. Kitts now have their escrow agreement in place, which ensures that, all the funding coming through the program has to go through these escrow accounts where the escrow agent manage the agency has to co-sign to have funds released, after certain milestones are achieved or whatever triggers they would have decided for that particular escrow account. And likewise, Grenada is doing the same in terms of ensuring that those things are put in place. So you have a proper escrow set up, you have clear triggers and milestones that has to be achieved before monies could be released, similar to what the banks do if you're putting down, if you're building a, if you're, putting a building down. So I think St. Kitts being one of the first, they would have learned from some of their mistakes, and they would have definitely put mitigative elements in place now to prevent those things from happening in the future. So I think over time, some of those would become less and less, because I think for every country, as I said, outside of the actual monies from the investment sums, really and truly, we would like to see those investments materialize and people are being employed from it, and on a more sustainable basis. I think ultimately that's where most countries want to go, and that's what they want to see. So we can sit back as units and not get involved, and ensure that happens. So whatever we can do as a unit, even in Grenada, what we do, we try to support, because there may be times, they might fall short, they may, like everybody else, you have an estimate, things go up. Look like now with COVID, costs would have increased astronomically for some areas. So they may need additional funding. So they may actually need more investors than they anticipated when they would have done their projections a year or two ago, the last set of projections they would have done. So things like that. So our job is to support the investor to ensure that they're able to see their projects to completion. And I think more and more the programs are spending the time and building the capacity in their own operations to ensure that sort of support is given so that the projects could be seen to a completion.
I want to go back into the benefits and some of the privileges the real estate investor has in the program. So describe to us what would be a typical arrangement of a CIP or CBI applicant who wants to do a real estate project. What do they have to come up with? What are some of the guidelines, and what are some of the benefits that they will enjoy?
Well, in terms of some of the things they would have to come up with. So first of all, they'll have to have a project that's that we vet the financials in the project. So it has to make sense. It has to be realistic. It has to be as it is now. I can't say that we have. So we have a minimum investment, and we're just trying to define that, because we, in the past, it's not something we had a real definition on. So we're trying to define that now. So in the coming weeks or so, in Grenada, that is, we should have a definition on that. I think it's 4 million US within the capital area, and outside of that, in terms of the rural areas, it's a little less, like 2 million US at least. So that has to happen. So you have to be able to prove that you're able to complete the project. You need to be able to have the land or have some ownership or lease agreement on the property on which you're going to be making the development. So we must see that. We must have proof of that. You have to have 20% equity of the construction cost of the project. You have to show that you have that as well, and that has to be deposited to an account. And some of the other elements, we need to see your sale agreement, your potential sale agreement that you're going to be having with your customer, because it varies. Different investors, it would vary in terms of their sale agreement that they're going to be having with their clients. So different developers would have different agreements with their clients. So you have to show us that as well as a developer. And some of the other basic things in terms of your company incorporation documents, and as well, we do due diligence on all the board members of the company. So when they apply outside of the application fees, they have to produce due diligence fees for each and every member of their board of their directors, as well. So that due diligence is done. What else? Let me just see here if I might be missing anything. So valuation report. Impact assessment. That's a big one. The impact assessment document. So that's something, in some instances, that when they do the initial application, the impact assessment might not yet be done. So we give them a period in which to do it, because they want to know that they have approval before they're able to they spend the money in terms of having the impact assessment done in terms of the area that they want to invest in. So we give them a period in which to complete and to submit to us. And then our physical planning unit, environmental, all the different units that are involved with that sort of assessment, they get involved and they go through that before any furtherance is done on the project as well. So those are some of the main things that have to be produced by any project investor, local or international.
Original, what are the typical benefits enjoyed on the project locally in terms of tax
Right. So
exemption,
funding,
duties, etc.?
yes. So each one is treated differently in terms of the projects, based on the nature of the project. So in terms of the duties, our GIDC, we work close. The developers work closely, and the CBI unit, we coordinate with our IDC unit, and like any business, even if it doesn't come through CBI, those sort of concession has to go through the IDC unit, which then goes through Ministry of Finance. It is a process. So in terms of those are applied for using the regular routes, regular channels. What the CBI does is provide funding, financing for that the percentage. So I told you that you needed your 20% of your construction cost. So the other 80% can be raised through CBI financing in terms of investors. So that is pretty much if you want to call it an interest-free loan, so I wouldn't even, in some instances, it may not even be a loan, because you may not. The thing is, the only thing is that through the CBI program, you don't necessarily get, all your monies up front, because your sales would come in, incrementally as you go out there. However, so what we find a lot of investors have been doing, they've been taking some sort of, if you want to call it, bridge financing. So, so that they have the monies up front, and as the sales come through, they use that to repay, whatever financing they would have gotten for the project, right? So you have that as well. So that financing element of it, I think, is the biggest benefit that you get from the CBI program.
So I would need to come in with my 20% equity. So that leaves 80% not unsecured, but still need to be raised. On what basis under what conditions would the CBI program assist, and where would they get the funding from? And do they have a stake in that business until I repay the debt back?
No, there isn't a stake. I mean, when you say in terms of the debt to be paid back, no, any CBI doesn't get involved in terms of the developers financing. So the only element of it that we get involved in is approving the value of the investment that you can attract using the program. Right?
Okay.
Using investors that come on through the CBI program. So those 220s, in terms of they need to invest, and how many of those you'd need to be able to raise that 80% that we're talking about. But we don't get involved in terms of that that negotiation between yourself and your other financiers, whatever option you choose. I mean, you may have an investor that decides, hey, I'm going to push this program, I'm going to sell hard, and I'm going to use the funding from that solely to fund my project. I'm not going to look for any kind of bridge financing. So you may have that as well. But because it's uncertain in terms of, some days you may have some good months, you may have some months that are slower than others, and you don't want that to affect, the project, your ability to execute the project. Generally they do that, but we don't get involved. Like I said, we try to look out for the investor by, try to vet we vet the sale agreement, but we don't get involved in terms of that financing. All we do, whatever, once the money comes through the program, it goes through an escrow account, and as I said, whatever agreed milestones and triggers are there for drawdown is what we approve and manage.
So for clarity, to our listening and viewing audience, so I'm an investor, going to build a 20 unit condo building. I apply, I get approved project status, and then I work with the CBI board to help me attract applicants who want the real estate arm or real estate route. So they accept the money on my behalf, and then during the program, they draw down and pay me based on the milestones achieved.
Well, yeah, to some extent. So in terms of how the escrow is set up, the money goes directly into that escrow. So the CBI doesn't actually collect the money on behalf, it goes to the escrow account. In terms of that element of it, and as well as in terms of the marketing of your product. So CBI would do what they can do in terms of our own marketing and marketing the program as a whole, but there's no one project that we would push over another. Likewise, so what happens, most of those projects, as a matter of fact, most of them have developed marketing agents, international marketing agents that would be out there pushing, and the international marketing agents then subcontracts sub agents, they call them, to sell and push and get new investors and that sort of thing. So in terms of their marketing end, they do a lot of that on their own. We do more, general stuff about the program and try to encourage people to, in terms of what the island has to offer and the program in itself has to offer. But that actual sales and marketing for their particular projects, they do through their international marketing agents and sub agents.
Have you had any local Grenada national applications for approved projects for tourism or real estate so far?
Yes, we have had, those are smaller projects. No, Adam, I want to use this opportunity to speak about thinking in the Caribbean. No, for the larger projects, most times you see the large projects come in and you look at the directors and ownership and stuff. It's not one person winning the project, and in the Caribbean, we tend to have an issue with getting into business together, pooling our resources together. So you have, it appears that, it's the international persons coming in and they're doing these projects and they're getting preference, but they're the ones, they're coming in, they're pooling their resources and they're building projects that are huge. So they get the support, and then we cry foul. But we have some, but those tend to be the smaller ones, because in most instances it's one person trying to do this project on their own, and that's something we have to try and find a way to move away from if we want to really benefit and from the program and to get greater gains. I mean, greater investment, greater gains. Well, you know how that works in the real estate, right? So that's something we need to encourage in the Caribbean, because we can't sit there because of the way we operate is different. We can't fault, the internationals when they come in using a different business model, to achieve what we fail to go out there and grab. So that's something I'd like to take this opportunity to encourage, because I'm sure, like Grenada, many of our other Caribbean islands are having the same issue in terms of persons not wanting to, collaborate and pool their resources together to make the kind of investments that the Caribbean needs at this time.
Well, I will tell you, I think part of the problem is that a lot of us locals don't know that perhaps we can actually submit an application for, I guess, a CBI approved project. And if
Right,
so, some of the requirements might be perceived to be too onerous. What are some of the, I
right.
guess, the minimum requirements that Grenada would have had for a real estate project, other than in terms of size, rooms, and maybe some conditions like a reception, for example?
Yeah, so I think, like I said, we're just in the process of defining those, because the truth is we have not had a lot of applications in that area from locals. It's something we encourage. It's something, but mind you, Grenada, like some of the other Caribbean islands, I don't know how it is in St. Lucia. I mean, St. Kitts is probably one of the islands that have this, their marketing, their PR on the ground locally, and having locals embrace this program. They're further along than we are. So, of course, a lot of persons have misconceptions locally in terms of what can happen if they can, if they can be approved and that sort of thing. So, I think there's a lot of work that we need to do on the ground in terms of educating our own locals, letting them know that they can be approved for these projects. But I think we're just defining those now, as we're pushing on with our PR program now, and we think that we would start getting a lot more local applications. We've never The thing is, when the projects come, they normally would just come at a certain level, you know, 20 rooms, and up, or, so we never really had to put a minimum quantity in there. So now it's something we figure, if we're going to attract more locals, we have to put something that even though there isn't a limit now, but something that would encourage them and say, oh, I can do this, I can find the 4 million US. It doesn't look like I need to put up 100 million US, so I can do this, that sort of thing. So that's part of the PR program as well.
Well, with that PR program, you better have some funding and grant sources, available to see any traction.
Yeah.
So Grenada, Dominica, Antigua, St. Kitts, they all have programs, and they all competing for that potential applicant. Where do you think, Grenada, how do you think you stack up compared to the other islands?
The truth is, we're coming on the bandwagon a little later than some of the other islands, so we're not last, but we're not first either. However, I think in the past the program has been being birthed out of the belly of the public service. It has been treated as a processing public service type of service. But I think we are ready now to take it to that other level, that business level, knowing that, hey, you have to sell this product. The business elements of this program is going to be developed a lot more. So I think Grenada is jumping in, getting putting their game face on at this point in time, as we try to push the product forward. I mean, we have a great product. Our price actually is a little more than others, because we've positioned ourselves as having a premier product, so, and we're fine with that positioning, because we know we can put our money where our mouth is. We have a great safety rating in terms of a local economy, or, as I said, or we have a robust program, so you don't have to worry about, hey, you have your citizenship today, and tomorrow it's taken away, because you have all these persons getting into the program that's bringing disrepute to the program. Now, because it's so robust, you don't have to worry about having a Grenadian, becoming a Grenadian citizen, sorry, and than having that taken away from you because the program, collapses. So I think we're just getting putting on our game face, and we're gonna see some much improved marketing and sales push from Grenada.
Sometime in 2019, Dr. Ralph Gonzalez made a comment which explains why St. Vincent is not part of the program. And he said that the country would not get involved in CBI on the grounds of principle and practicality. The principle is very straightforward, and I quote, "The highest office in the land is that of citizen. It is that which binds all of us together in a political society called a state. We have rights and obligations to each other. That's the highest office, higher than the Governor General, higher than the Prime Minister. It is not a commodity for sale, and the passport is the outward sign of the inward grace of citizenship, and that too is not a commodity for sale." Do you think we will see more islands coming on board the CIP? I don't want to call it bandwagon.
And Sam, I think it's, as an economic driver, it is, I can't say what islands are going to do, but as an economic driver, it is a good one in that it's tax-free. It's one of the few tax-free revenue generation avenues that countries have. Because everything else comes from any other revenue that the government is able to generate comes through some form of tax being imposed on its citizens. That's the truth. The duties or all the other taxes that we pay, your VAT and everything else, that's how the government derive revenue. So this is probably the only tax-free revenue generating one of the few that we have. So yes, I think you might find other islands wanting to come on, but knowing that, like he said, the process now needs to be in place to be able to support a program like this. And this is where sometimes you find that the difficulties come. So you have to have the quote unquote political will to be able to ensure that you create a robust process for your program. As well as, listen, we look at this as Caribbean. Do you know that in the 1800s, a random person from any part of the world could have attained their citizenship to the United Kingdom based on the purchase of spending £100 at the time, the purchase of a share in the Bank of Scotland. So this is nothing. This isn't anything new for islands and countries. I mean, the bigger countries are doing it. They come in different forms. Some call it residency program. Some call it Australia, Canada, the US does it as well. The UK countries, you have quite a few countries in Europe that's doing this as well. So we tend to make it look like it's a Caribbean thing, and we these small islands and we're selling out our birthright, and I mean the value requirement in terms of the investment for some of those countries are a lot greater. So we won't even know and understand. It's not all people investing in those programs, but the super rich are investing in those programs because their requirements obviously are a lot higher. They have the market size to be able to accommodate it. They have the systems in place to be able to accommodate it. So I don't want us to think about it as if it's a Caribbean thing and it's this sinister thing that we're doing something in the dark in the corner, when you have so many of these developed countries also involved in this kind of program.
I agree 100%. And it certainly is an accelerator in terms of the growth of the economy. I want to end by asking a question. At just, I believe, 36 years old, Lewis Hamilton is a 7-time F1 champion, I think equaling Michael Schumacher's record, and is hailed by many to be the greatest F1 driver of all time. He also just happened to be the son of a Grenadian father. Is there any plan to use his celebrity to help push the CIP program?
Well, boy, being in this seat, there would be a lot of unconventional things that will be done by me and the unit. I'm coming with a private sector background. I think there are things that we will explore that will allow us to be able to market the program a little bit differently than we've done in the past. Like I said, looking at more at the business element of the operations, the processing element in terms of our times and making the program a little bit more efficient. So that might just be one of the things we might decide to take advantage of.
Okay, my final question. Last year, we think the statistic that was released was that Dominica did in excess of 450 million EC dollars in revenue from CIP. Are you guys at liberty in saying what kind of volumes you're doing in terms of numbers,
Um, I
applicants,
can't.
and
So
revenue?
I can't remember the value honestly off the top of my head. I'm only 2 months into this new role. So that I can't remember off the top of my head. However, if you go onto our Ministry of Finance website, it's there. It's something we do. We publish it. We're transparent about this, even though people try to make it seem like it's a gray area and we're not, it's there on the site. You can compare the numbers over the years. I know we would have gone past our previous years. Achievement last year, we would have gone past that, and we're aligned to go beyond that again this year. So we're not quite where Dominica is yet, but we're coming.
And and Carly, any last words for our audience?
Well, I'd just like to say that, across the region, where we have the CIP programs, I think persons should get to know about the program, get to understand the program, and not just look at the negatives of the program. The program can bring quite, if we're able to align well and be able to create proper synergies between the CBI program or the CIP program in your country, it's a great thing for your country. And we need to find better ways to leverage. It might just be that we need to find better ways to leverage in terms of our citizens. And like I said, even in the statement you would have made earlier in terms of citizens, remember our people are getting traveling and getting married to people of different nations. They are becoming citizens of other countries, and we have our own people are encouraging other people to become citizens of our country. So that's not something we can hold on to and say, well, we're opening up. We have to. That's the only way we'd be able to grow and embrace. And we're not an island. Yes, we are, but we're not an island in that sense. So I would encourage persons to get to know, find out about the program, see what it offers, understand how it works, understand what you can do. Advice you might be able to give as a business person or being in the diplomatic arena. You may have a point or two to help strengthen the program, because ultimately we all want the benefits of the investment of the program. What we don't want is to have persons that are not the best associated with our citizenship. So and we all want the same thing. So lend your help in terms of helping to boost and encourage and make your program more robust. And that is what I would encourage people to do right now.
Thank you, Ms. Purcell, for such, I guess, enlightenment. I want to take this
You're most
opportunity
welcome.
to encourage our listening and viewing audience, those who are interested in property investing, to explore whether or not your island has a CIP program, get to understand how you qualify or what you can do to qualify to get a development that is deemed to be an approved development. It means that you now will have a sales agent who can actually target customers to purchase your units. And in some markets, it's anywhere from 200,000 US to 300,000 US as the minimum requirement for the applicant. There are some persons like myself, who probably would prefer to acquire property, as a real asset in exchange, or go through that route in applying to be, I guess, a CIP recipient. Whereas, of course, there are other opportunities. Some may deem it to be philanthropy, where you give 100,000 US or 150,000 US to the government grant or the sovereign fund, or whatever it's called. But I certainly believe that there is a great opportunity to invest in real estate and certainly get a much higher return than you probably would have gotten if you were to do it on your own, primarily because of the minimum requirement for consideration for the applicant, and of course, the fact that the CIP body has access to individuals of high net worth who are motivated and interested in acquiring a secondary or tertiary domicile. So thanks for joining us for another enlightening episode of Caribbean Property Investing Podcast. We thank you again for your support. We ask you to share, tell more people about it. Check out our website, check out our social media, and we see you next time. Remember, everyone needs somewhere to live.
I love my community. It teaches you the importance of being together even through difficult times. Business owners doing their best to make it through. Fishermen and farmers working hard to put food on our tables. Nurses caring for the sick shows me who we are made of. People who care. I guess it's about growing together.
Congratulations and thank you for tuning in to the Caribbean's first property investing podcast. We want to help Caribbean people create wealth and achieve financial freedom through property investing. Our show provides general advice based on personal experiences and is for educational purposes only. For more information, resources, and past episodes, visit us at CaribbeanPropertyInvesting.com. Remember to click the subscribe button so you never miss a show. Let's go.